Good morning, everyone on the West Coast, and good afternoon to everybody else. Welcome to the Joto Making Money from Sublimation webinar. My name is David Irvin, and today, with the help and expertise from Jimmy Lamb, Sawgrass's Manager of Education, we're going to talk about how to make money with your dye sublimation equipment. As with any business, it's relatively easy to produce a variety of different products, but the difficult part is finding a market for those items and making sure that the items you produce are priced at a level which makes your company a profit. In a moment, I'll be handing you over to Jimmy at Sawgrass, and he will guide you through some of the ways to achieve these goals. At the end of Jimmy's talk, if there are any questions, please let us know. So have a pen and paper ready, so if anything comes up during this section that you would like to ask questions on at the end, please feel free to do so. So over to you, Jimmy, and thank you, everybody, for taking the time to tune in. Over to you, Jim.
Thanks, David. Good to be here, and welcome everyone. Our topic, of course, making money with sublimation, one of my favorite topics, as a matter of fact. So we are going to look at some different things, some different approaches and concepts that you can apply that hopefully will allow you to make a little bit more money with sublimation. All right, so I don't know anything about any of you today. Some of you may be in business, some of you may not. So I'm going to treat it that we have a mixture of both. So my first question to anybody that would be in business or is just getting started would be, what is your business strategy? Okay, well, that's a big, big question. But I usually follow it up, especially if you're already in business, with, are you leaving money on the table? And what exactly does that mean? Well, what I mean by that is, if you are already in business doing anything at all, are you really capturing all the dollars that are available to you from your customer base? Or are your customers leaving you and going other places to get other things? And chances are that is true, okay? I started as an embroiderer many years ago. And with embroidery, you know, we can sew logos into shirts and hats, and that's really about all we can do, you know, a few jackets, things like that. But basically apparel, a limited amount of apparel we could do. But yet my clients wanted what? They wanted T-shirts, printed T-shirts. They wanted award products. They wanted promotional products. They wanted signage. So they were always leaving me and going other places to spend their money on other things. Now, if I could do those other things, then guess what? I could capture more of their money. But if I couldn't do those other things, then there's a good chance that someone else, of course, is getting the money, and I might not only lose the money, I might lose them. Because let's face it, if they went somewhere else and they found someone that could do all the great things they needed, plus the great things I was doing, they may not come back to me. Not because I did anything wrong, just because it was easier to go one place and get everything. So diversification is a key issue for making money. You will not be able to do everything that everybody needs, but are there things that you can do to diversify yourself enough to get a good majority of what people need? And you know, in my mind, sublimation definitely fits that bill, because sublimation allows you to do so many different products and enter so many different markets that, yes, you can get a greater percentage of your customer dollar. According to the Ad Specialty Institute, it takes approximately 6 times more energy, effort, money to bring in a new customer versus servicing an existing customer. So if you already have an existing customer base and you add sublimation, you can go and spend a lot of time bringing in new people, or you could go spend a lot less time going to your existing customer base and say, hey, listen, look at all these cool things that I can do now. So almost overnight, you're able to increase your sales just by bringing sublimation to an existing customer base. If you don't have a customer base because you're brand new, that's okay, because the reality is you can do so many different products, you will have the ability to reach a wide range of different people. This is just a great example here of what you can really do with sublimation, because, as I put it, it's diversification on a grand scale. Everything you see in that picture is sublimated. It was all done with the same system. The only exception is the heat press. That water bottle right there in the very middle was not done on a standard heat press. Everything else was. That was done with a mug press. You can also use a mug wrap for that as well. But look at the variety of products that are displayed there, and think about that client, in this case a school, of all the different things we can do with sublimation. We couldn't have done that many products with embroidery, or with screen printing, or with direct to garment, or with CAD cut, or with some of the different forms of transfers. We just couldn't do it, but we did it all with sublimation. So you can see lots of great products there that we can produce, which gives us more ability to do things. Now, part of where this ties in is not just having the capability, but when you're actually speaking with a customer and talking to a customer, when you have a variety of products that you can offer, you can do a lot of cross-selling. If the customer called you because they wanted to talk to you about shirts, well, make sure you're prepared to talk to them about all the other things you can do, because they probably don't know all the other things you can do, and they may not have thought about all the other things you can do. It's also smart to ask them, why do they need this? I mean, okay, I want to buy a shirt, they tell you. Well, why do you want to buy a shirt? Okay, well, we're going to sell the shirts for a fundraiser for our athletic boosters. Okay, that's very important information. Certainly they could sell their shirt and make money, but you know what? All these other products will help them make even more money. So by understanding that and having the ability to show them all these other products, you can broaden that sale, because you can say, great, let me show you some other things that are really popular for fundraisers, for spirit wear, fan wear, however you want to call it, okay? So again, those are the kind of things that you do to actually help make more money. Every time someone asks for one thing, show them 7, okay? That's me. I'm a rule of 7. I think 7 products is a good thing to show. It's not too overwhelming, but it gives people other ideas. And we'll talk more about that as we go, and you'll see more examples as we go as well. All right, well, we can't talk about making money with sublimation before we first talk about what sublimation is, because I know some of you are new to this, and sublimation, you understand it's some form of printing, but you don't really understand everything about it. So I'm going to take just a minute to talk to you about what sublimation is and what we can do with it, and then we'll start focusing again about making money with sublimation. Sublimation is a digital printing process, but it's unlike any other one out there. With typical digital printing, we are applying inks to the surface of products. In order to make those inks bond to the surface, we add a chemical additive called a binder, which creates an adhesion between, say, the ink and the surface. Screen printing uses binders. Direct-to-garment printing uses binders. Many of our ink-based transfers use binders. Sometimes in that case it's in the paper rather than the ink, because, for example, if you had a Hewlett-Packard office printer on your desk and you went and bought t-shirt transfer paper, that ink was never made to go on a t-shirt, but if you're buying the right transfer paper, the binder elements in that paper help that ink actually bond to the t-shirt. Okay, so in all cases we're bonding the ink to the surface, but not so with sublimation. Sublimation requires no binders. It uses a chemical process that is molecular bonding, and it bonds with polymers and polyesters. And that's the only thing that it will bond with. It will not bond with anything else, just those two, polymers and polyesters. And it does it at a subsurface level. So we're not really applying sublimation to the surface like everything else. We're actually applying it subsurface. That makes it almost indestructible. Okay, almost indestructible. We can never say it's 100%, but almost. Okay, so the reality is you get a permanent coloration that won't peel or crack. Okay, and in the case of laundering apparel, it will not fade when washed. That's pretty important too. Now, the way this works is pretty simple. We're going to create an image. We're going to print it out using sublimation inks onto sublimation transfer paper. We're going to mate that transfer paper with a product we wish to imprint, put under a heat press. We're going to apply, in most products, not all, but most products, 400 degrees Fahrenheit with a medium pressure for about 1 minute. 2 unique things happen. Number 1, that sublimation ink turns into a gas. Number 2, the polymer or polyester that we're applying it to, basically think of it as being composed of microcells. And the cells, think of them in like a clamshell. And when we apply the heat to them, they're forced to open. And when they open, they allow that gas to penetrate, which is the image, is in a gaseous state. It penetrates in. When we remove the heat, the clamshell, per se, for lack of a better description, closes back up and contains the heat, contains the ink permanently within. So the reality is it's in the surface instead of on the surface. Pretty cool process. No binders required, and we discard the paper and we're done. Paper is just temporary. Okay, very important. That's pretty much how it works. Now, the advantage, of course, is a lot of different things. 1, it's really quick to set up, which means we can turn things pretty quick. We can produce thousands of colors in the magnitude of 600,000 plus colors. That's a lot. Very low production cost. For easy reference, we tend to say that sublimation is a penny per square inch. It's actually cheaper with the new SG400 and SG800 printers as well as the VJ. It is actually less than a penny per square inch, but that's easy math if you just want a quick reference of what does it cost to print something ink-wise. No special skills, no color separations. If you're a screen printer, you understand that. And it's great for man, I'm stuttering today. Must be Thursday. It's great for short runs. Okay, we can do small orders, we can do big orders, we can do quick orders. If we have the artwork and the blank, we can turn it around and make it pretty darn quick. So sublimation covers a lot of different aspects of the production process, making it simple, fast, and profitable. Now, I mentioned polymers and polyesters. A lot of times when you hear that with sublimation, we're like, really? That's it? That's all it'll bond to? There's all this other great stuff in the world. I've seen a wooden plaque that was sublimated. You're saying it doesn't sublimate to wood? No, it does not bond to wood. The wood plaque that you see has a polymer coating applied to it. So there is a wooden plaque right here. So we do have products that are ceramic. Here's wood, here's acrylic, here's metal. We have some hard plastic. So we have a wide variety of products. Other ones that aren't up there, we have slate and stone types of products. We also have glass. So the reality is we have blanks that have had a polymer coating applied to them through a mechanized computer controlled process, and that allows the sublimation to bond to that particular product. Now, the polymer coating you cannot feel it. It doesn't, if you pick up something metal that has a polymer coating for sublimation, you touch the metal there, you will not feel the polymer. It doesn't have a rubbery, plasticky feel to it at all. All you do really is feel the metal. So it doesn't really change what you see or what you feel, but it's there, and it allows things to bond to it when we go to sublimate them. Literally, there's close to 1,000 different blanks available in the world today for sublimation. So tons and tons of different products out there. Everything you see there has been sublimated, just a small sample of what's available. Picture perfect reproductions. I love this aspect of sublimation because of the fact that it is HD, high definition, and it is so good that we can do professional photography and meet the high standards that professional photographers put on their work. And a lot of times when I'm telling people this, like, well, I really don't care about pictures, I need to do logos. But I'm here to tell you, if you can add a picture or something, you do increase the perceived value. And in the world of making money by selling products, perceived value is everything. Okay, it's only worth what someone will pay for it. If someone thinks it's worth $5, they're not going to pay more than $5. If they think it's worth $500, they may be willing to pay the $500 because they do believe that it's worth that. Your job and everything you do with sublimation is to raise the perceived value, because a higher perceived value is typically going to give you a higher margin. Doesn't usually cost you more in production cost, but it will give you a higher perceived value. That's important. Okay, if I could just add a picture into something, pictures tell stories. They explain things. They're visual. When we add a picture in, it typically increases the perceived value, but not the cost to produce, which means I can charge more, but it doesn't cost me more to make it. That's how we see really good margins. Use the advantages of sublimation to create unique and interesting products that catch people's attention and have that high perceived value. Okay, just because a customer wants a logo on something doesn't mean we can't figure out how to put a picture on there as well. And I do that all the time when I'm working with promotional products. Can we actually work a picture into the promotional product to increase the perceived value of it? Because the picture tells us pretty much everything we need to know about that particular product. That's an important aspect. Plus, you can make money just working with nothing but the professional photography industry too. I will tell you that. And then we have apparel. And when it comes to apparel, yes, it only works with polyester. But being that some of the most popular products in the marketplace today are polyester, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So when we're looking at modern day polyester, much of it is what we call polyperformance. Polyperformance means that there's microcells within the fabric such that it causes the fabric to have moisture wicking capabilities. That means when you perspire, it pulls the sweat away from your skin. We can thank companies like Under Armour for making that mainstream. So that has made it extremely popular. Sublimation will bond with polyester, but it will not bond with cotton, so do keep that in mind. But if you have a 50-50 product, 50% polyester, 50% cotton, yes, it will bond with that. It will look faded. Now, I'm a marketing guy. We're talking about making money. Okay, so a lot of times you oh, look faded. People are like, well, that seems like it lowers a perceived value. Not necessarily. How do you present this to people? What words to use to describe it? A lot of times if you use the word faded kind of sounds like worn out. Okay, we don't want to use that. Instead, we use words like retro. Okay, and when we're using that retro look, we're actually possibly increasing the perceived value because we're making it sound like it's special and unique. So, I've done this before because a lot of times the retro look works very well with the surf industry. And I do a lot of things with the surf and outdoor water sports and things like that. So, my pitch becomes, listen, I think a great application here would be the retro look. Okay, it costs a little bit more money, but it's well worth it because you can charge more money yourself and you're going to make more money by doing that. Well, here's the funny part. Did it cost me more to actually produce the retro look by using a 50-50 shirt? No, it did not. It was the exact same production cost to do the 50-50 as to do the 100% polyester. The image has that washed out faded look, which is described as the retro look. And because a 50-50 shirt costs less than a 100% polyester shirt, it actually cost me less to produce. But because I positioned it a certain way, I'm actually able to increase the perceived value. So how you position your products is a big part of how we make money. Always be thinking about the creative terminology, why they should buy this, why should they buy that. Now, sticking with shirts for a few more minutes and some other tips along the way, when we start talking about 100% polyester, polyperformance shirts, typically they do cost a bit more than 100% cotton or 50-50. Okay, we're looking at easily $5 or more for a blank polyester shirt that we can sublimate. Okay, so it's not the same shirt as a cotton t-shirt. Okay, I mean they're not, forget the fiber content, they're not even in the same category, to be honest. When we talk about polyperformance, we're talking about moisture wicking. Okay, we're talking about poly will outlast cotton over multiple washings. If we sublimate 100% polyester, it will not crack, peel, or fade when laundered. Cotton will. We screen print cotton, it's going to crack and peel over time. DTG will crack and peel over time and fade. Okay, all those things happen. So we actually have a better product. The problem becomes the perception of the customer. I live at the beach in North Carolina, and we have some of these tourist shops over on the beach where they'll sell 3 or 4 t-shirts for $10. The idea is trying to get people in off the street. They have a term for it. It's called loss leader. They take a loss on the product to lead you into the store, okay? And then hopefully you buy a bunch of other things where they make up the money. So the problem becomes so many times t-shirts are used as loss leaders that people have this perception that a t-shirt is a very low-end product with a low value. Okay, so when you start talking about sublimated t-shirts, they're equating that sublimated t-shirt to that $3 or $4 shirt they got at the beach, and that's just not the same type of product. We're talking about a totally different product. So you got to position your product the right way. It's not going head to head with 100% cotton or 50-50. Okay, it's totally a unique product all by itself. I tend not to call them t-shirts. I call them performance products or performance apparel. And then I reference as fast as I can Under Armour because everyone knows the price points of Under Armour. And that's the type of comparison that you really need with these types of things. Now, one other thing I'm going to say about apparel, and we're going to move on. In the modern world of polyester apparel, we do have products that look and feel like cotton. It's called spun polyester, and it actually looks and feels like 100% cotton. So if you have a client who's a little uncomfortable with the concept of polyester because they've had a bad experience in the past, as long as you have in your sample kit spun polyester, you can show it to them, and they'll be amazed that it's actually not cotton and it is polyester. So just something to think about. And we do have other apparel products besides t-shirts. We're seeing a lot of everything. Socks have become very popular. You can see the compression armbands. Those have picked up a lot. There is caps, there's ear warmers, there's neckties. There's a lot of different things out there actually for sublimation. It keeps on expanding. bottom line is sublimation opens the door to all kinds of things. And everything you see again here, I try to show you over and over again, lots of different products for different marketplaces, all of which have been sublimated, so that you just start to get an idea of how vast the line of products are. And educating yourself as to all these different types of products, you're not going to carry all, you can't carry but so many samples with you. So the reality is the more that you know, the more that you're able to talk about when you are talking with a customer. So if a customer actually starts to ask about jewelry, is there jewelry available? There's all kinds of jewelry available if you actually go out and spend some time seeing what's in the marketplace. So being aware of that's important. That's the main thing. Be aware of all the different product lines out there so that you can use it to fulfill ideas. And a lot of times you want to be progressive with your ideas. You want to go to the customer with the ideas instead of waiting for them to come up with the idea. Do you know what I mean? There's a big difference between the two. So you always want to keep that part in mind as well. No matter what they ask for, show them something else. My other favorite trick, and I've always done this, is when somebody does place an order, a decent order, okay? When we finish that order, we'll almost always throw something in for free that's different, a different product that we can produce that we think would appeal to this client. For example, if they ordered, a bunch of shirts, maybe we would do a sublimated cap and throw it in there as well. Or, maybe it's some flip-flops, go in there as well. Something that we think is complementary and is appealing, because the idea is that they see that, they get it as a freebie, it's like a little gift, and then they get the idea, well, maybe I should have gotten that too, and hopefully they'll come back and order some more stuff. So think about that one. That one's always been a great trick. Okay, sublimation production, just continue real quick, and then we'll get all back into the marketing. It's a pretty simple thing. Again, if you're not doing this currently, you're going to need a computer with some type of graphic software. You'll buy a sublimation printer that has inks and the papers and that kind of stuff. And you're going to have a heat press, most likely a flatbed, of course, a flatbed, maybe a mug or a 3D heat press. Most likely a mug and a flatbed would be the two that you would probably have. You're going to create your images you can use any graphics program you want. If you want to use Photoshop, CorelDRAW, Illustrator, that's fine. We do have one that I'm not really going to talk a lot about today because it's not really our focus, but for anybody that are buying systems or have actually bought the Virtuoso systems that Sawgrass produces over the last year, you have free access to Creative Studio, which is a really, really unique program designed specifically for setting up your graphics for sublimation. The idea was to make it an easier process, and it's there for you to use. It's absolutely free when you buy your printer. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. It's not a requirement. But definitely you can learn more about that by talking to the people at Joto, and you can even go online and play with it yourself. Then once you create your image, you're going to print, and typically we try to print as many things as we can on one sheet of paper. It gives us more like a, more efficiency with our production. You can see here I set up the frog coaster, and we're putting 4 coasters on this one sheet of paper. We're using a little piece of heat tape, looks like Scotch tape, it's not, to hold it in place. You can see that the artwork, we always make our artwork slightly larger than the coaster, make it easier to line up. But we're going to put a couple pieces of tape on each one to hold them in place. Then we're going to go to the heat press, place it on the heat press with the paper side up and the coaster side down, and we're going to apply, in this case, 400 degrees for 1 minute at a medium pressure. We're going to open it up, immediately rip off that paper while it's hot, and we're going to end up with 4 beautiful coasters. That total production time about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, the printing time very quick, pressing time about 1 minute. So it's an easy process. That's my whole point. I just wanted to show you we can kind of move through it pretty easily and continue on our production over and over and over again until we fill the order. So let's go back into marketing. That was kind of our focus anyway. Let's talk about marketing. Before we do that, we got one question here. Can I apply some polymer coating to cotton and sublimate it? No, not really. When we talk about polymer coatings, when a polymer coating is applied, let's look at, for example, any type of the hard products. When it's applied, it's not just like something you spray on there. The reality is you have to have a primer, you need a base coat, you need a top coat. They have to be put on precise coverage, precise depth from edge to edge of whatever it is you're going to sublimate. Typically it's done with specialized machines that are very precise in building up the layers of the coating that you need, and then curing that coating as well, because it has to cure. So it has to actually, the coating itself has to bond with the product, and then it has to be cured properly properly too before we can actually sublimate it to it. So the idea of trying to actually spray something onto a cotton t-shirt and then sublimate it to it's really not very feasible. People have experimented with some of those different things. I do know there's some companies working with some transfer papers that are chemically doing some bonding between sublimation and cotton, and that's something that's kind of new out there. There are processes where people will actually sublimate to a film, and that particular film has on the backside an adhesive. So it's like making a transfer where you bond the transfer itself to the shirt. So you would actually sublimate onto this specialized transfer paper, and then you will cut off all the excess paper so that you're only left with the graphic on that specific type of transfer paper. That paper has an adhesive on the back, so you lay the paper backside down onto the shirt and you apply the heat. Now you bonded the paper to the shirt, and then of course the front of the paper is the sublimation. So you're kind of saying you're sublimating a cotton shirt, but you're not really. So those are really about your only options with that. Okay, so we have all kinds of different directions and things that we can go with when we're out there looking at the marketplace. You know, awards, for example. I mean, awards is a huge aspect of what we can do, and we can do a lot of different things. Now, if any of you are engravers, you will find that photo awards are a good complement, but the reality is you can do them faster, you can do them cheaper, but you can sell them for more money. And that's the key thing about an award. You greatly enhance an award product by putting a picture or an image of the person onto the award. And that's something you want to keep in mind. And that's one of the big selling points on the award product. The way I like to position is you capture a picture of a moment in time and you preserve it forever. So that's how I'm using to kind of position my awards and show the power of what we have there that we can do with sublimation. Then personalized gifts. When we start about personalized gifts, again, being able to personalize something takes it to another level because we're making it personal to that particular person. And sublimation is a great way to do it because that's where a picture really pays off. You might be surprised of all the things that are sublimated in this picture. We have the young lady who's looking at the tablet here, and that tablet is personalized with her name and some pictures. This is her pet right here. See the dog up here? There he is. Okay, that's been sublimated to a metal panel there on the wall. This is sublimated. This other wall hanging is sublimated. The coffee mug is sublimated. There's another family picture over here that's sublimated. And there's more pictures here, hard to see, sublimated. The pillow has been sublimated. The blanket here has been sublimated. Okay, so over and over again, there's so many different things we can do with personalization. And that's a big marketplace because personalization has a really nice markup on it because of the fact that it's been personalized for someone, making it unique that way. And that's not for everybody. Not everybody does it. But let me tell you, personalization actually steps over into another world called promotional products. And we'll touch about that in just a moment as well. Typically, we think of personalization for personalized gifts only. But as I'm going to tell you more about in just a minute, it fits into promotional products as well. Another question just came in. Thank you for answering the first question about the t-shirts. What about coating wood? Can you coat wood? Again, the coating process, there are kits available for coating. Coating is a difficult process. I talked to one individual. Most people that figure it out won't tell you what they do. But he spent about 6 months figuring out a really good recipe. I do know part of it, he uses a kiln like you use for pottery to be able to fire it. But the key is being able to put enough coatings and finding the right coatings. First of all, you got to find the right coatings, right combination of coatings to be able to apply them. So I always suggest to everyone that really take a good close look at what's available in the marketplace first. Then also look at some of the companies that do custom coatings, because if your coating has any issues, your sublimation will have issues as well. So no matter how good you are at sublimation, if there's any problem with the coating, it affects the quality of the image. So it's not an easy process to take it on yourself. The education marketplace, I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but about spiritware and fanware, doing those kinds of products. And when you go into the education marketplace, the school marketplace, that's where you really tend to approach them and talk about things like fundraisers, selling products as fundraisers. But we also have award products we can sell into that marketplace, signage products. There's a lot of different things that we can do with it. And so it's really up to you of looking at the marketplace and then thinking of all the different things you can do there. And then using what you have and your capabilities to actually go and put together products and samples and put together some pitches and make some sales. Well, my system is being quite slow today. A couple of these images that got put in are really big, and it takes a little bit of time for it to flip sometimes. Okay, furnishings and decor. These are types of areas that people don't think about. A lot of times when people think sublimation, think about just, small products, the personalized gifts, those kinds of things. But the reality is we can sublimate on the fabric. Fabric can be turned into all kinds of different things. So when we start talking about furnishings and decor, that's a whole nother direction that we can go. Now, of course, it has something to do, too, with the size of your printing capabilities. Depending on the system that you buy, you can do bigger stuff, or maybe you're restricted to smaller stuff. That's totally up to you. But the concept is to think beyond that. Let me give you an example. I don't have a picture of it here, but I do have another picture in my collections. And it was a pillow that was created, and on the pillow has a picture of two dogs. And those two dogs, sitting there, beautiful picture. And it wasn't a pillow made for sublimation. They just sublimated the image onto fabric and then took it as seamstress, and it was turned into a pillow, and they charged $150 for that, and I mean, really, their cost is very, very minimal to put it together. There are pillows available for sublimation where they're designed where you pull out, the pillow itself, and you just sublimate on the cover, and then, put the pillow back in, that type of thing. So those are just kind of things you can think about. There's just a lot of neat things we can do with sublimation, and I'm always encouraging people to think outside the box. Well, people that are like artists, and they'll sublimate onto fabric, and then they'll, put it in, you stretch over like a box frame, and you sell the art, pretty high end. There's actually sublimatable canvas. Normally canvas is not polyester, but there is a canvas that has a polymer coating to it that, again, if you're doing art type thing, and you don't have to be the artist, maybe you're doing it for the artist, but it's, you sublimate it to it, and then it's put onto a frame where it's stretched out tight, and then goes on from there. Just to show you on the sort of the top end of things with sublimation, again, this is almost some of the bigger systems, but we see things like snowboards, have been sublimated, and all kinds of different panels and signages and tabletops, just all kinds of things. I'm just trying to give you that whole range, because the more you know about sublimation, the more excited you get about all the different things that you can offer. And then we have interior signage. And we say interior because one of the things about sublimation is not UV resistant. So if it's in direct sunlight, it's going to fade over time. Now, I'm a marketing guy again. I don't always think that's bad. What's bad is if the customer doesn't have an expectation that it's going to fade, okay? We can't tell you a fade rate. It depends on how intense the sunlight is, for how many hours per day, et cetera, right? A lot of people suggest 2 years before you start seeing noticeable fading. I've heard of products in direct sunlight for 5 years and they still look good. So it's really hard to say. But here's the point. If you tell your client that they have an expected, say, 2-year span, their expectation is they get a 2-year span. Anything more is good, right? But if it is faded out after 2 years because you told them their expectation was, well, yeah, that's what he told me, right? I call it recurring income, because if it's going to fade out, then they're going to have to replace it. And, someone was telling me the story where he was selling license plates to the police department, and they had 200 cars. They wanted 200 license plates. And he told them right up front, these will fade over time. He says, I expect you will get 2 years based on our climate here before they start to, show some fading. And the police department was, well, we understand that because, the cars themselves wear out, the interiors fade, uniforms fade. So that's acceptable. And every 2 years, he gets 200 more license plates ordered. Okay, so again, we call it recurring income. All right, so interior signage, that's why we recommend the signage for interior, not exterior. That's why we call it interior signage. But think about with sublimation, is these are beautiful. I mean, you look at some signs that are done, and they're done with like vinyl letters, so it's one color stick-on letters. That's no good. But you can see a little bit of a sign here, all the full color. There are nice graphics in here. We can put pictures in that tell a story. So there's so many cool things that we can do with signage and sublimation. Always thinking about, can I work a picture in somewhere, because that adds to it, makes it more unique, and it's something a lot of your competitors really can't do. Photography and fine art. I kind of touched on that just a minute ago about doing, say, some of the canvas, and it is stretched, around a box frame. But because of the high-def capabilities of sublimation ink, professional photographers do depend on sublimation to reproduce a lot of their images. And there's a lot of money in that marketplace. You think about a wedding portrait. Many wedding portraits are done today using sublimation. The sublimation cost is very low, but you think about what these things retail for. Someone's making a lot of money. Okay, so the reality is, yeah, we can do a lot of cool things. And these are things we don't always think about. A lot of times you look at this and you think about, well, I'm not an artist and I don't have any products. So listen, think about a public building, like think about a restaurant. I guess we call that a public building, right? Well, the public goes in there. Think about a restaurant and pictures on the wall. Think about a hotel and pictures on the hallway walls. If all the copyright issues are taken care of, but I mean, if you're able to reproduce images, maybe copyrighted artwork, or maybe you work with a local artist. You go to a local artist and say, hey, listen, we could probably get your artwork put into some of these businesses and public buildings and whatever. You create the artwork, we'll do the sublimated panels and go out and sell these. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. You're just doing the production work, or you have the rights to reproduce things and selling them to people. And these things have high margins on them because of the fact that it's artwork. I mean, this is not sold for $5 and $6, these panels. Many of them are sold for hundreds of dollars, when it comes down to it. So, be creative. That's my whole point. Creative, creative, creative. Always be thinking about being creative, okay? Key word there, creative, right? Okay, so anyway. And then we have the promotional products. I did mention to you the promotional products before. Just touching on that again, the personalization aspect. With the personalization aspect, we're able to take a promotional product to a higher level. Okay, this is a sales tip for you if you're doing promotional products. In the world of promotional products, the value of the product is rated on what's called impressions. How many times someone sees that product. You see ink pens all the time, very popular promotional product. But how many people really see an ink pen? So the reality is something like a coffee mug is probably one of the better promotional products because it gets used and a lot of people see it. So every time someone sees that, that's an impression. So that's the value of that product. Now, if a customer wants to give out coffee mugs with their logo on it in hopes that people will use the coffee mug and it'll be seen and hopefully drive in some business, advertising, you really want to make sure that you help them somehow get as many impressions as possible. Now, a coffee mug's a great one to use. The problem with coffee mugs is people collect them. And when you have people collecting coffee mugs, they tend to sit on a shelf, so they're not getting a lot of impressions. But if you actually put the person's name on the coffee mug, that's a personalized promotional product. It pretty much ensures they're going to use that product as their primary coffee mug, which means more people will see it. So when we can do a personalized promotional product, it increases the reality of someone using that product. So you selling the product to the business who's going to give it away, you start pointing out the value of personalized promotional products, and you charge more. Does it cost you more to put a name on there? Not really, okay? But it's a very inexpensive way to do it and to kind of ensure that people see it. So that's important to keep in mind. All right, that brings us to product packaging. And I think this is one of the key things for you in the world of making money with sublimation, because I see people put together sample kits that are horrendous. They just grab everything they can. It's miscellaneous, it's unrelated, and they throw it into a bag or a box or a container, and they go and show it to the customer, and it's overwhelming, and it's messy, and doesn't look all that professional. What I've always done, I learned this many years ago, is you build a sample kit for a specific market. so that when you go to that market, you're showing products that would appeal to that market, but then you've also created graphics that have a lot of eye appeal, look very professional, that again tie into that marketplace. Okay, for example, you see the school products here. You don't create one of these for every school that you go to. It costs too much money. And you don't choose an existing school in most cases, because if you were to choose East Side High and show it the West Side High, you probably would offend, West Side High. So you don't want to do that. The best thing to do is create your own fictitious high school, choose your name, choose your mascot, choose your colors, be creative, have fun with it, and put all that together. That's a fictitious high school right there, by the way. Okay, so you put all those things together, and you can show it to any school, and it doesn't offend anyone. Doesn't have to be their mascots or whatever, but they get the picture. Okay, that's my whole point. They get the picture, of all these cool interrelated products. And see, that's the nice thing. All those things are tied together. If those were all different businesses and organizations, everything spread out in all those pieces, it's clutter. You don't want clutter, so you got to build a good sample kit. Also, the sample kit, not only does it give people ideas and eye appeal and excitement and all that kind of stuff, right? It also helps encourage larger orders because you're showing more pieces and more ideas that they didn't think about, okay? So product packaging to me is a big key to larger orders, okay? So there's one set up for a school market. Let's look at a different market. Here, this is one of my favorites, okay? It's one of mine. And this is really for a corporate entity, okay? In this case, it's Hookers, which, people get laughs out of that. It's a tackle company, makes tackle, right? Okay, Hookers, Big Fish Products. Now, when you look at all these things, you do not see the same logo just rubber stamped on everything. I don't like that. I like this because to me, there's some versatility going on here. We've taken the logo and we've modified it a little bit. We've taken Hookers over here, and then when we put it on the bag tag, we took out some of the background, okay? And it's just that lettering aspect out of here. But basic Hookers is still on everything, but it's not just like in your face, okay? Here's a great example of a plaque, okay, a photo award. So many people give it awards that are engraved. Engraving's great. I don't have any problem with that. But the point being is here we actually have the person's picture. We have some colorful graphics in here. I mean, that looks really nice, and it costs less than it does to engrave. Here we have signage, for the International Decor. Look, here's a picture. By the way, notice that almost everything in there has a picture. Okay. Now, there's a couple that aren't real photographs like this one, but it still has a picture if you think about it. But the picture tells the story. The picture tells you what Hookers does. You don't know what Hookers does necessarily when you see the name. You see the picture on the sign, you know. On the bag tag, you realize real quick, Hookers must have something to do with catching fish, right? Same thing over here. Again, that fish has been caught with that. See, here's a guy fishing. Here's fish. Here's fish. And here's a really cool thing. It's one of my favorite angles is the fact that in some cases, we can actually sell these branded products. I mean, I love to walk into a business to say, how would you like it if I could show you a way to have your customers pay you to advertise for you? Well, let me tell you what, some of these products, like the bag tag, you could sell. You can also sell the phone cover. If you're Hookers, if you're this business, they could sell the phone covers. Why? Because it's that fish. The guy that catches a fish is intrigued with the image. Okay, it's got the Hookers logo. Okay, that's kind of cute in this case. But really what he wants is the fish. Same thing here. He wants the fish. That's the selling part. We just happen to slide in, the branding there where we could. So all these things, it shows you a whole package that almost any type of corporate entity might be able to make use of. So I can take it to other businesses is my whole point. Now, this is one that I don't really love because it's the same logo rubber stamped on everything. This is a soccer team in Europe. So they're selling fanware basically here. Nothing wrong with what they did, okay? I mean, just it's my personal preference. I don't like rubber stamp because after a while, rubber stamped logos and stripes gives me a headache. But it's still that same concept. You're not just showing the customer, a mug or a hat. Okay, you're showing them all these other cool things they can do that they probably didn't think about. Okay, and that's what we're trying to do with this particular kit. I'm telling you, if you got a good kit, the kit makes sales for you. Okay, sometimes it's better than any sales pitch you can use. Take a look at this one. This one we put together for a hotel, okay, a small hotel, not a big chain hotel, right? And this is, again, where you start, when you really look in depth, it's like, oh my gosh, look at all these different things we can sell them. You know, as an embroiderer, the only thing I could sell to a hotel would be staff shirts, you know, and you know, really, that was it, some apparel. But look at all these other products. There's no apparel even in there. You know, we have linens that have been sublimated there and there. We have actually this bowl has sublimation in it, the plate sublimated. Think about an individual room, toothbrush holder, soft soap. We have a coffee mug. Most rooms have 2 people. We have 2 coffee mugs on the tray with 2 coasters, okay? Then we have to have a set of towels, okay? Do not disturb. You know, every room is going to have all these pieces. Maybe we can even do the room numbers. If they use the old-fashioned key, we got the keychain, right? But then you can go into the dining area and you can outfit them with all these different products. And then you can, other meeting rooms, we can actually put these, can be mounted on the wall, the clock, the sign, and all those professional pictures we talked about. I don't have any of those in here, but you know what? If this is a local and it's in a resort area, they should have resort pictures on the wall. I mean, those are the kind of things we can sublimate and put up there. And so for you, it's about targeting not just a customer, but I always try to target a specific market. You know, if I'm going to do one hotel, I want to do every hotel. You know, make one kit and go find a pitch and refine my pitch every time I speak to someone, you know, and hit them on this, hit them on that. Don't ever go and say, what would you like to order? You know, no matter what they tell you they want, always show them extra things. Just show them ideas, okay? That's an important aspect, and that's what we're trying to do here with our sample kits. Sample kits are awesome. Okay, you know, here's one for the wedding marketplace, and you know, I've done full-blown webinars just on the wedding marketplace. It's so huge that doesn't even begin to give you, you know, an indication of just how much it can happen in the wedding marketplace. So over and over again, going out and selling and being successful at this is to target specific markets, learn everything you can about those markets, and then create sample kits that make sense, and also some type of sales pitch or spin for that particular marketplace. You know, that's what's going to make it happen. There's so many different markets out there. You know, the funeral industry is a prime market for sublimation, believe it or not. And I've done full-blown webinars on that as well, just showing you all the different things that you can do within that given market. So what I wanted to do today was just show you some of the different markets out there, and then let you start thinking, you know, along the different lines of what are the cool things that we can do, and then how can we set ourselves out and be unique and different. Because here's something else to think about. Everybody that can do sublimation can put the same logo on a coffee mug. How can you do it different? How can you do it better? What can you do different that will make you stand out? And anytime you can be unique and different, you're able to get more sales and charge more money for that. And those are important things to always remember, okay? Just always remember, small little things. If you're doing a large panel, let's say like a license plate, if you just put a logo in the middle of the license plate, you have a white license plate with a logo in the middle, that's rather boring. Always put in backgrounds everywhere you can. Fill up that white space on those products. It gives it more pizzazz, costs you very little money. Those are cool things to think about. So, you know, lots of cool ideas there, and that pretty much, you know, kind of covers what I wanted to cover today. And I'll bring David back in. I had him muted here. So, David, you still there?
I am. Yes.
And
Thank
great
you.
time for anything that you'd like to add would be good right now. I'm going to take a look and see what kind of questions are coming in.
Okay, I do. Yeah, thank you for that, Jimmy. That was a very educational webinar. I've been in this industry for 25 years, and I know certainly there were some pitching ideas in there that I'd not thought of before, and I'm sure it was helpful for everybody else. Now, just quickly before everybody goes, those of you who are not familiar with Joto, I'd just like to make sure that you're aware of our website. We have 2 websites. One website is www.jotopaper.com. Now, on jotopaper.com, you're going to see US pricing for all of the different products that we offer. And then at the same address, but .ca is for all of our Canadian customers. Now, many of the items that Jimmy was talking about during the webinar, in fact, the majority of the items that Jimmy was talking about during the webinar are available through our website, and it's very easy to navigate. There's a blue bar that runs across the top of every page. Basically, if you click on the items that you see on that blue bar, for instance, there's one that says imprintable blanks. You can click on there. It takes you into product groupings from mugs to apparel to high definition photographic panels. You click on each one of those items and you'll get pricing based on Canadian pricing for jotopaper.ca and US pricing for jotopaper.com. One of the other quick things I'd like to mention as well is we now have 5 warehouses across North America, which is very important. You know, many of these items are quite expensive to ship, mugs, those kinds of things. And, you know, if you've got a warehouse that's only two shipping days away from you, and we do pretty much cover everybody now in North America within 2 to 3 days just with UPS Ground, it's going to save you both time and money in getting those goods to you. So thank you everybody once again for attending this webinar. If you have any questions that you think about after the webinar closes today, please contact me. Once again, it's David at Joto. Our 1-800 number, if you just like to make a note of this, it's not up on the screen at the moment, but our 1-800 number here is 1-800-565-5686. And if you've got any questions regarding anything to do with the dye sublimation business, or if you're looking obviously for any products, please give us a call.